here. CA wrote in. Now, I did not pull this up, and I should have. Let me just grab this here. He says, I'm sure this has been answered before on a past episode, but my small group recently studied the book of Ruth. This led us to discussing Deuteronomy 25. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy 25. This is what I did not have pulled up. And we're going to go verses 5 through 10. 5 through 10. And he says, 25, and the law concerning the Levirate marriage. While I adhere to the law being applicable today for believers, some laws are hard to understand in today's context, especially verses 5 through 10 of chapter 25. Yeah, this Levirate marriage is definitely a difficult one for us in our modern day. Actually, I'm reading a book by Dr. Roy Gain right now, and he says that a lot of this particular law is, in fact, cultural, and I tend to agree with him on that in terms of the taking off of the sandal and before the elders, right? It's attached specifically. I think, now, Rob can correct me on this because we actually have not talked about this at all. So I don't know what Rob thinks about this, but I personally think that this law is attached directly to the land because it has to do with the inheritance of the land. And so if you have land in the in Israel, in the allotted portions that God has given, and your brother dies, the land needs to go to someone in the same tribe. Okay, and so this is attached directly. Now we have other laws that are attached directly to the land, and the argument could be made. Well, shouldn't we? In Deuteronomy it says when you're in the land of your enemies, and you recall all of these commandments which I'm commanding you today, then I will bring you back. So one of the questions could be, well, should we practice these things in the diaspora? It's a good question, and I don't know what the answer to that would be. In terms of taking off the sandal, Personally, I see this as a cultural element of shame. In other words, in our day and age, it wouldn't be shameful for someone to take my sandal off and say, hey, look, I got his sandal, right? We shame people in other ways in our day and age. I see this kind of like greet them with a holy kiss, right? In our culture in America, for a man to greet another man with a holy kiss would be inappropriate. And so we do other things. We greet each other with a side hug, or we greet each other with a hefty handshake, or whatever it may be. So I think that the sandal part is in fact cultural. We would probably shift this to something like saying that he is not manning up to his responsibility in front of the congregation, or that he is dropping the ball as a man. I don't know what we would do to shame a man in our modern day, but I'm sure we could think of something. But I do think that this is attached to land. So there's two different discussions here. One, is Levirate marriage still applicable today if you're in the land and you own land? That's the first discussion. The second discussion is, how would we, if we wanted to do something like this in the diaspora, what would that look like? And I'm not sure that, would we do, here's a third question, then I'm going to pass this over to Rob. Third question would be, obviously, if someone doesn't own land, if someone lives in one of the cities, right? Because the city could be transferred. The city properties could be transferred, right? So if you live in the city, does the Levirate marriage, according to the Torah, is it still applicable, or does it have to be in the farmland? And these are all questions that would need to be hashed out. Rob.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think there's two, for me, just stop talking off the cuff. There's like two levels to look at it. That I totally agree. It's in the commandment and in the book of Ruth, it's tied to land. It has to do with preserving the name, or the memory of the deceased, and retaining that name with the land. So that's one aspect. But it also is a protection for the widow. It's a guarantee of a commitment of the larger family to say you're good, like you're protected, like you belong here. And because in the economic situation, where in the ancient world, right, what would well, we can go to the book of Ruth, because that's really the only place we kind of see it. We see it in a parable form, if you want it, or a legal dispute form, when the Sadducees try to trick Yeshua and say, hey, a man had a woman, no children. Like 7 guys die, right, and she has no kids. What happens? So they use it as a legal kind of case study, but it's not anchored in like the book of Ruth, where it's like, oh, this is an account of something that went down. But the protection of the woman, I think, is a core priority there.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.